after 2 months of dealing with that, I just thought, I'm in this space. I can't get myself out of it. And there is so much power and so much self-love and being able to admit that and saying, okay, it's time to go get help. So that's what I did. I went to my general practitioner and said, hey, I know that, I first felt that this was just secondary to my hormone imbalances, but regardless of the cause, I need help now. I do think it's appropriate to be back on medication for depression. And that's the route that we went. So
I'm really excited to delve into our discussion because I feel like you have an inspiring story to tell, as you'll discuss in this episode. You have had quite a journey, and I'm just excited to help you spread that message and create the awareness even more, and help. And I hope that our listeners will have, they won't feel alone. Because I feel like when you're just been diagnosed with PCOS or you're going through some mental health struggles, you kind of feel like you're alone. So I feel like having this episode and just raising that awareness and trying to just spread that message, people won't feel alone, and they'll have some support group where they can just reach out to us, for example. So I feel like I'm just happy that you've agreed to come onto the podcast.
Thank you.
Interview.
Thank you for having me. And I agree too. Like that really, it's comfort to know that that you're not in this alone. I know I found comfort in relating to other people's stories as well. So I'm just happy to be here for sure.
Awesome. So I guess we can start off, as this podcast is, PCOS Oracle is about PCOS. The foundation is talking about PCOS and raising awareness. So let's start off by talking about your story, or how you were diagnosed, just everything up to this point, and where you see yourself in the future dealing with your PCOS, basically.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with PCOS at the age of 23. I was dealing with a lot of issues. At the time, I was having a lot of pelvic pain, and my menstrual cycles were all over the place. And just to give a little bit of history, I actually didn't start my first menses until I was nearly 16 years old. I was 15 at the time, but I was almost 16. And then I went 13 months before I had another menses. And then it would be 8 months. It would be, 6 months. They were just so sporadic and very few and far between. And then on top of that, my entire life had struggled with weight issues. For the majority of my life, I've been overweight or obese. And so when I went to my gynecologist at the time, just explaining that to her and looking at the symptoms that I had, she said, well, honey, you probably have PCOS, and diagnosed me there, and then immediately put me on what everybody probably gets put on, the birth control pill, and on metformin. But at that time, it kind of gave me the understanding of, oh, this is why I'm not having menstrual cycles, and this is why I'm having my weight issues. But in full disclosure, I kind of left it at that. At that time, PCOS, that was the first I've ever heard of it. Nobody spoke about it. This was really before the big boom of social media. So we didn't have, support groups on, I don't even know if the Instagram was around at that time. So, there just wasn't any support. And I also found myself, when I would mention that I had PCOS, I would get a lot of negative response, such as, well, you don't look like someone with PCOS, you don't have facial hair, and you don't have these things, and I've seen women with PCOS, and you just don't fit that criteria. So I kind of, dug my little hole and threw my own pity party for several years, and left it up as, okay, this is my life. I'm overweight because of this thing. That's just how it's always going to be. My, periods are just going to be sporadic for the rest of my life, and kind of just went through that flow for several years. Then I married my husband, and we were wanting to conceive, and my husband actually works offshore. So he's gone for a month at a time. So when you're looking at conceiving and your husband's only home half the year and you never know when you're going to have a period, that was a big struggle. So I went back to the doctor. At that time, I wasn't on metformin because I remember having some of the side effects, and I immediately took myself off of it prematurely. And the doctor said, we need to get back on metformin to help you, improve insulin levels, ovulate, and those types of things. So I did have my son, Logan. He's my youngest son. And, after having him, I reached my highest weight. And at this point, I'm around the age of 25, and I was like, I kind of accepted the fact that I'm always going to struggle with weight. Like, that's just my story. And that's, in return, helps me have comfort in knowing that I'm just going to have to make a lifestyle change. Like, I just can't do, this trend and this diet and, all the diet pills, like, because I've tried it all. I mean, I've been like probably many of your listeners. I tried it all. I've been on every program out there since I was a teenager, started taking diet pills at the age of 12. Like, I'm no stranger to trends and fads. So this is when I just said, you know what, Letisha, this is going to be hard as hell, but you just birthed a baby, so you can do hard things. And I just started out super small on my own personal weight loss journey. I will admit at that time, it was all about the weight loss. So, and when I say I started small, that means I walked for an hour every day. And for the people listening to this, like, I literally had to have my inhaler with me just to be able to walk for an hour. So that was hard for me at the time. And then I just started making slow changes to my nutrition. I started eating more what I call real food that either has to be farmed or, stuff that's grown outside and not in a factory. And so I was successful with that. I, was losing weight. The more that I created this lifestyle, the more I actually started getting interested in health, wellness, the fitness industry. And that opened up a door to my passion for weightlifting. I knew that working out at home got me far, but I wanted to go further. So I joined a gym. I started weightlifting. I knew just from the little bit that I knew about PCOS that weightlifting was beneficial for women with PCOS. That was that part that we could actually use the higher testosterone to our advantage. And then eventually I just got inspired and decided, you know what, I've made it this far. Why not join a competition and do a bodybuilding competition? And that's really was a pivotal moment in my journey. I worked for 5 months, very dedicated and really hard work, and got on stage as a figure competitor. But what I didn't realize at the time, all of that stress that I was putting on my body, everything that I was going through, my life was going through some major stressors at the time as well. Once I came off stage, I really had some major issues with my body, hormonally, and everything was just going haywire. Basically, that's the best way I can explain it. And so then I started going back to my gynecologist and was like, I really have to learn more about PCOS. I need to learn about what it's doing to me on a hormonal, level, what it's doing to me metabolically. Like, there's just all these things I have to find out, and I have to find out now because I'm living in hell inside my own body. And that was my first major experience with being dismissed by a doctor. My doctor looked at me and said, well, you have a history of PCOS. It's very likely you still have it. And I thought to myself, well, duh, I still have it. This is a lifelong disorder. There's no cure for it. So of course I still have it. I need answers of what do I do from here. So then I started doing my own research. I started looking up my symptoms. I started doing lab testing at home. There are saliva kits that you can get now that you can do at home. So I kind of just took my health into my own hands and was like, something is going on. And then eventually I did reach out to a functional medicine practice that is pretty familiar with competitors and used to some of these issues. And that's what really dove me into functional medicine. I started working with a functional dietitian, working on my specific needs. But during this whole process, during that whole time, I started realizing, you know, all of these things that I'm learning, women are not being told about this stuff. We're not being told about our hormone imbalances. We're not being told how important sleep is, or how important, it is to manage your blood sugar, or how important it is to reduce inflammation. And basically, let's be real, the modern American lifestyle right now is, sleep deprivation, high inflammation, poor diet, lack of exercise, and we're not managing stress. So, we're doing the complete opposite of all the things that we need to be doing. And that's up. Women are being told left and right, you have to eat less and you have to work out more. But in reality, that's not really the answer. Like, really, the answer is this more holistic approach that we need to make sure that the foods we're eating are supporting, a good, healthy gut, supporting our hormones, our blood sugar, make sure that we're sleeping, we're, moving for our body, not overstressing the body. Just all of these things started coming to light. And that's whenever I decided I needed to be that beacon of light for other women. And I was a nurse for 10 years and just took a leap of faith, left that career, started my own business, became a registered health coach, and started working with women all over the country. I've even got clients outside of the United States on, instilling this more holistic approach. I work with most of my clients do have PCOS, that's where my passion lies. But also, there's just so many women out there that just need that help of understanding how their body works and how they can use that to their advantage and improve their health and start, living a more full life in their bodies.
Yeah, everything you just said, I'm just like, just been nodding the whole way through, like, yes. I just feel like women, like you've said, you mentioned how you had these symptoms, but you never met that criteria because you didn't have like the hair on your face, like all these certain symptoms. Like, women don't have to have you have to tick all the boxes on all the symptoms, and that's what most women think, that I don't have the symptoms, that still mean I have PCOS. And I think the fact that there's this criteria of what PCOS should look like you should be overweight, you should have like a hair on the face, you like always this set criteria. I think that's why a lot of women often go misdiagnosed as well, and I think that's like a huge problem. So I think this stereotypical idea and this criteria shouldn't be a thing. I just really feel like there definitely needs to be more support and not just giving advice.
I really love the idea of kind of calling it a spectrum syndrome or disorder. Just a personal story, my youngest son, Logan, that I mentioned earlier, he's autistic. And so I'm no stranger to what a spectrum disorder looks like. And even for him and his diagnosis, people would say things like he doesn't look autistic. And I'm like, you guys, there is no look for his diagnosis. And PCOS is the same thing. Are there some typical major characteristics? For sure, but that's not every individual with PCOS. And so we have to start looking at it like a spectrum. But that's where, we're very blessed to have platforms like your podcast here to be able to spread that message, because you may have someone listening to this that says, oh, well, since I don't have that, like you just said, I don't have hair on my face, I don't have thinning hair on my head, or I'm lean, I'm not overweight, you can still have a PCOS diagnosis, even if you don't have all of those criteria. It's important to know that.
Yeah, exactly, because we know now there's not one type of PCOS, there's multiple types. So we can't just be fixated on you have to meet this criteria. There's just a lot of things. We're still learning about PCOS anyway. We still really do not know everything about it.
Right. Science is always evolving.
Exactly. But we're definitely getting, I feel like there's more awareness about it now. Like you discussed, when you were diagnosed, there was nothing. And I feel like when I was diagnosed, in the UK, I feel now it's starting with social media. But when I was diagnosed, I was 18, I'm 25 now. I feel like there wasn't much. I had no idea what PCOS was. The doctor said you got PCOS. I was like, what?
Yeah. Did you immediately, like, did you go out and get books and dive into the research, or were you kind of like, you sat on it for a few years before you decided, let's dive into this? Which one did you do?
I took the birth control pill for like 15 months because the doctor was like, this is going to treat you, get your periods back. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, magic pill, just give it to me.
Exactly.
I had no idea that it was not going to do anything and it has all these side effects.
Right.
But then, yeah, after I just felt like rubbish taking that pill, I came off it without consulting the doctor because I was like, this is not sitting well with me. I was just reading about the pill and I was like, this is not healthy. So yeah, I was researching about it, but I was still not taking full action. I was doing those dieting, I was cutting carbs, I wasn't doing the right things. I still didn't really know what I know today. Like, I feel like we all are just trying to do what we think, do what we read. And I feel like I took that approach, which was like wrong of me, but at that point I had no idea that,
it's all hindsight.
Yeah, losing weight wasn't the sole focus, it's just a symptom. Like, all this stuff I had no idea. But
I think that's a beautiful part of your process and your journey. Just as I shared with you, I'll be completely honest. The beginning of my journey was all focused on weight loss, and now I realize it was not about the weight the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because I used to be very athletic and like very lean when I was growing up. So when I started putting on weight, it messed with me so much because people would be like, oh, what happened to you? Like, people would know you as being that lean and athletic person. I used to play sports. So then people would look at you and be like, oh, what happened to you? Like, why have you gained so much weight? And be like, it affects you so hard. Not like,
For sure.
It's just, so all that stuff, you just end up diving so much into weight loss, trying to just do anything just to lose a couple of pounds and to quieten people down. Because all this stuff, when people say these comments, it really messes with you mentally. People should stop commenting on people's weight.
they should. Especially it's 2020 now. Can we please, a public service announcement? Quit commenting on people's weight, okay?
But yeah, because like, you don't know when you comment on someone's weight, how they take it and what lengths they're going to go to now to overcome that problem.
I can remember every person throughout middle school, junior high, and high school that called me fat. Like, literally, I'm 31, and I still remember the people that bullied me for being overweight as a child. So it cuts much deeper than you realize.
I remember like when I was in school, and I used to get bullied about being so short. They used to call me midget, all this stuff about my height, and it's just like, why do people have to always target something about it? Why do people have to bully you? It's just so annoying.
Now that we're adults, I think it's easier to understand. I mean, kids are just the worst. They're so mean. But even as an adult, on social media, you don't meet the friendliest people sometimes. And I try to remind myself, like, hurt people. So just, send some good vibes their way and move on. But it still gets to you. And I totally relate to that. I think the people listening to this are like, yes, I relate to that as well.
Yeah, I feel like everybody can relate to something that we're going to
for sure
in this episode. So yeah, let's kind of touch on some of the medication you're taking. You took the birth control pill that we mentioned, and then you were on metformin, which is for insulin resistance. So let's dive a little bit into insulin resistance, what it is, and like what you could do to either naturally lower it or treat it without going on metformin.
Okay. Do you mind if I kind of explain like how insulin resistance works? Okay, good, because I have my own little metaphor, analogy, whatever you want to call it. But so insulin resistance, unfortunately, the majority of women with PCOS have insulin resistance. I believe like the percentage is up in like the 80s now. So it's very common if you have a PCOS diagnosis that you may struggle with insulin resistance. And insulin is the hormone that helps manage our blood sugar And basically, it's the key that opens up the cell door to store sugar in. So, like, we use sugar, and I may use sugar and glucose interchangeably, but we use sugar for energy, and we also store it in our muscles and our liver as a backup supply. So with insulin resistance, we have the key. It just doesn't work all the way. So if you imagine like a garage door, you can't open it up completely. And so what you'll find is if you imagine sugar coming to that garage door, I like to think about it coming in the form of dump trucks. So you have these dump trucks of sugar coming in, wanting to store the sugar in the garage. The door won't open. And what you'll notice is you'll have a traffic jam. So you'll have dump truck of sugar after dump truck after dump truck, and that signals the pancreas, which makes the insulin, to produce more of it. So the pancreas produces more insulin, it comes in, and together they finally get the door open. But by this time, you have so much sugar outside waiting that the cell just can't hold it all. So it'll fill up to capacity, and then that remaining sugar gets stored as fat because our fat cells, they have like unlimited supply. I mean, it's like the iPhone storage you've never heard about. They can take all of the sugar. So that's a contributing factor to why a lot of women with PCOS, insulin resistance, have difficulty maintaining or losing weight. But there's definitely it's manageable. So that's the good news. The good news is we can manage it with our nutrition. So first and foremost, eating more wholesome foods that are like our carbohydrates that are high fiber. So we're looking at fruits and vegetables. I know typically women with PCOS have a fear of carbohydrates, but we just forget that there's so many nutrients in our plant-based foods, like our fruits and vegetables. They're full of fiber. Please don't be afraid of them. And then also eating good, healthy sources of protein like wild-caught fish, non-GMO, grass-fed beef, chicken, those types of things. Protein actually stimulates glucagon, which is the other blood sugar hormone that helps pull that sugar out for us to be able to use it. So if you think about that fat cell, glucagon can kind of help us pull the sugar out of those fat cells. So we definitely want to promote that. So making sure that we're getting adequate sources of protein. Typically Americans, I think, only get like around 30 grams of protein on a daily basis, which is considerably low. Yeah, so making sure that you're getting adequate protein, and then also adding in healthy sources of fat. So the great thing about fat, especially when it's paired with that carbohydrate, it's going to help slow down that absorption of sugar, but it also helps you absorb those nutrients. It gives you satiety to your food, so you're fuller, satisfied longer. Particularly, I recommend eating what I call the complete three, where you're eating, a good source of protein, a low glycemic carbohydrate with a healthy fat. And what I mean by low glycemic carbohydrates for your listeners, low glycemic carbs, like those fruits and vegetables, are basically carbohydrates that don't spike your blood sugar, such as a candy would. And that just helps keep your blood sugar stable over time, which in return kind of reduces that demand on insulin. So that kind of helps with your insulin resistance as well. But also knowing that nutrition aside, there's other lifestyle factors that we can do. So we can get in the gym and start lifting more weight. Weightlifting can help with your insulin resistance. Don't be afraid of the weight. I know women are like, oh, I don't want to get too bulky. You're not going to Hulk out. I promise you, I've been lifting weights for about 4 years now. I haven't hulked out even when I tried to be. So it doesn't work like that. But definitely don't be afraid to lift some weight. But also be okay with having different modalities of movement. Yoga is great. Doing low intensity cardio. I think a lot of times we get caught up in this idea that workouts have to be so strenuous and we have to just be killing ourselves, and that's often counterproductive. So make sure that you're also doing workouts that stimulate the parasympathetic system, that causes us to reduce stress, like walking, hiking, yoga, those types of things as well. A Sleep is another huge one. I feel like sleep is often the overlooked magical tool in our toolbox, making sure that you're getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And sometimes that requires some sacrificing. Maybe that's sacrificing your Netflix at night, or sacrificing, putting down your phone an hour before you go to bed, whatever you need to do to make sure that you get extra sleep. 7 to 9 hours is ideal. But yeah, so I think I mentioned, I could just keep going on and on, like nutrition, movement, sleep, stress reduction. There's so many things that we can do without jumping into the medication and supplementation. So definitely start there. I think it's important to set that foundation. Start there, start changing those lifestyle habits. And then, there may come the time where you do have to introduce medication or supplementation. And even if that's the case, it's not a bad thing. I think a lot of times I see on social media where women are, I want to get off medication, and that's totally valid to have that feeling. But there is this stigma that if we take medications, we're broken or something. And, Western medicine and even functional medicine, like these herbs and supplements and medications are there to help us. So if your body does require that extra bit of help, don't be ashamed of that, and just be grateful that you do have that option. But what I typically tell my clients is supplementation is really kind of like water. And your lifestyle, if it's like mud, so if you don't have a healthy lifestyle and you pour that clean water in there, it's going to turn the water muddy. So that supplementation shouldn't be your first line of defense, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Start with the basics, set that foundation, change your lifestyle factors, and then if you don't notice, that it's being effective, then you can move into the supplementation.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like you might be supplementing with something, and for example, you might have gut problems, and then those supplements are not even going to be absorbed. It's just a waste of money. So
for sure.
And you might go on Google and you see a bunch of supplements for PCOS, and then you just be like, okay, I need all of these supplements. You take them all, and then it's just like, would you actually need every single one? There's probably just a handful of supplements that everybody needs, and then maybe a few targeted ones. So everything really has to be targeted and personalized based on your hormonal state, your situation. So I feel like a lot of the time we need to really take a step back and start first with the basics, the foundation, the nutrition,
for sure,
the exercise, everything that is not so expensive, things that we can just do for free, and then go into the supplements and go into things that are a little bit more tricky and cost more money, because I feel like we just have to be more cautious before we just dive in and take everything we read on Google and what someone says.
Yeah. But and can I add to that? Because one thing that I also like to mention, because I think you're right, a lot of women, look up what supplements do I need to take, and you spend all of this money, you take all of these supplements, and if you're taking them all at once, how do you know which ones are actually working for you and your body? Exactly. You have no way of knowing what is working. And more often than not, you could have spent that money on more wholesome foods that support your body, or maybe a fitness membership, or whatever the case may be. But what I do think, and this is just part of us being constantly exposed to advertising, no matter if you're on social media, if you're on TV, you're constantly being exposed to advertising, and advertising is basically a short version of, I'm going to fix your problem for you. Okay. So when you hop online and you see advertising for a PCOS supplement, you think, oh, that's going to fix the problem for me, because we still want quick fixes. That's just part of our nature, I believe, at this point in 2020. And it's not as sexy to work on nutrition, lifestyle, sleep, stress, as it is to let me just buy the supplement, take it as directed, and then my problems are going to be solved. So I just think that just spreading that awareness of like, hey, girl, work on these things first and get those down And then you can move into the supplementation, and do it slowly. Take the time, do one at a time and see how that affects you.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like women might see, we've listed all this stuff and they're like, well, that's just way too overwhelming. Like, where do I start?
For sure.
think that's one of the big reasons why people just take that quick fix, supposedly trying to take a quick fix, that supplement, that magic pill. So in your opinion, where do you think a woman who's just been diagnosed should start? Like, what's the first thing? Like, where would you recommend just starting with their diet first, making changes there, and then, because I feel like people might be like, oh, this is sleep and stress management and exercise, getting a gym membership. Like,
it's a long list, right?
Where can I just start? What step can I just go first, and then I could like go into another?
Yeah. So I will say nutrition is going to affect the most, in my opinion. Regardless of what your goal is, if your goal is on, maybe regulating your menstrual cycle, if you're trying to lose weight, whatever the case may be, nutrition is going to be a foundation point to start with. But even with that, it's so broad, because as well as I do, if you Google, the best diet for PCOS, oh my goodness, you're going to be 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to be told keto. And that's not always the appropriate answer for everybody. So I think even starting with nutrition, you may have to start slow there as well. Kind of the same thing about supplementation. If you change everything at once, how do you know what is going to work for you? And I think it's really important to remember that this is where, again, I take comfort in knowing that PCOS is lifelong for me. That means that I have the rest of my life with this diagnosis, and that means that there is no rush to get to the finish line right now. Does that make sense? So I have the time to, work on my nutrition and slowly start making those changes, because as I'm doing that, once you do it more slowly and you don't change everything all at once, it tends to be more of a lifestyle habit. You tend to sustain whatever those changes are. You tend to not be nearly as, crazy during, those times. I know if it's January, we see a lot of New Year's resolutioners that are like, I'm just going to change all of this at once, and they're miserable, right? So definitely start with nutrition, and don't be afraid to start slow there, whether that be different for everyone. Obviously, maybe starting slow for you is cutting out sodas and sweets, maybe starting with eating more vegetables, getting more water. Like, there's so many different ways that we can go there, but I would definitely say start with improving your nutrition, because that is definitely going to impact your body the most.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like nutrition and the foods we put in our body do play a huge have a huge impact on our hormones, how we feel, our overall energy. Just, it really can have an impact, because you can notice it. Like, maybe you had a day where you didn't really have the best food because you went out, you went for drinks with your friends, and the next day you just feel a bit off. So imagine just doing that on like a regular basis, just not eating well and just feeling like rubbish all the time. So yeah, I feel like making a few changes with your diet, just getting better quality ingredients and drinking more water, just all these small things will start to feel have it up in your vegetable intake. Just like, there's just minor things you can do, because like you said,
for sure,
our discussion, when you start to go on your weight loss journey, how you just started small, you made the changes with your whole food diet, you just started walking, you didn't even like go to the gym or anything, which is taking it super slow.
Oh yeah, it was crazy slow.
You wanted to start upping the changes because you could handle, it was sustainable for you, so you decided even more changes and even more changes until everything kind of falls together and you start to feel even 100 times better.
And I give that all the credit for being here 5 years later and still maintaining a healthy lifestyle. I give that all the credit, because I didn't do the quick, like, let's just change everything at once. I didn't do that to myself this time. I just said, hey, this is, I'm in it for the long haul, so there's no rush here, but yeah, totally. And I hope that your listeners can take that information home with them and put it to their lives, because it'll definitely impact them in a huge way. It'll impact everything. Mm-hmm.
For sure, I definitely agree. So let's move on to something you've been a bit more, let's say, vocal about on your social media, which is just mention your Instagram handle, just so our listeners can go follow you and check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram at Bates Loves Weight. So yeah, definitely follow me on there. I try my best to share as much information as I can, but as you'll see, it's also mixed in with my personal life, my personal journey. That handle actually started with my personal journey before I became an entrepreneur and a health coach. So I try to keep it mixed up. And I think we're kind of getting into the segue of what I've been mostly vocal about lately, which has been mental health awareness. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
So yeah, let's just delve into it. Yeah, just go and start.
Yeah, for sure. So I will say that a large portion of women with PCOS also suffer from other things such as mental health issues, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, those types of things. And I'm definitely one of the statistics. I've actually suffered from an eating disorder since the age of 14, and have been no stranger to depression since my teens. But I will say over the past 7 years, my depression was pretty well managed. I kind of like to credit that to changing my lifestyle 5 years ago. And about a few months back, it just snuck up on me. It came out of nowhere, and I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed. I started ignoring text messages, phone calls. My work started slipping. Things that I used to enjoy, such as meal prepping and going to the gym, I didn't care about anymore. My health, I work diligently on my health, and I focus on it, and I care so much about it. And it even got to the point where I didn't even care about that. So I could just tell that I was really in a dark space, and I needed to get out of it. So I sat with that for a couple of months, because I will admit that I kept, pushing off the idea that, okay, this is secondary to my hormone imbalances, because I don't care as much right now. I'm eating some things that aren't supporting my gut, which can affect my mood. So, the wheels started turning, and I thought, we'll just wait before we talk to a doctor about this, and let's see how it goes. But, after 2 months of dealing with that, I just thought, I'm in this space. I can't get myself out of it. And there is so much power and so much self-love in being able to admit that and saying, okay, it's time to go get help. So that's what I did. I went to my general practitioner and said, hey, I know that, I first felt that this was just secondary to my hormone imbalances, but regardless of the cause, I need help now. I do think it's appropriate to be back on medication for depression. And that's the route that we went. So I did start my antidepressant, SSRI, which helps basically the serotonin that you have is kind of sitting on a shelf. And this kind of helps us take it off the shelf and use it. And over the first, I'll say probably a month of using it, there was definite up and downs. I would have a really great day, and then the following day I couldn't get out of bed. And I was really vocal about that on social media, as scary and as vulnerable as that is. But the reason why I wanted to share that was, for one, I've always been authentic about my journey. I've shared the good and the bad. But two, I wanted just to show people, because there is a stigma behind, depression and mental health, but happy people, successful people can get depressed too. I mean, we see this with celebrities, but I mean, my life was going great. I have a career that I love. We're in the process of getting a new home that I'm absolutely excited about. Just life is going so good, and, beautiful, healthy family. Why all of a sudden can I not get out of bed? So I just wanted to share that to show people, like, this can happen and nobody chooses this. I didn't choose to fall into that dark space. It chose me. And then also just understanding that taking a pill, just kind of like being prescribed pills or medications for PCOS, wasn't going to be the magic answer for me. I have to do the actions and put it to work to get out of this space as well. I can't just take an antidepressant and be good with that. So I did have to start doing some things like making a to-do list every day that got me out of bed, that got me to, going outside, doing more, walks outside in the fresh air. When I would wake up in the morning, I would try to, get some sunlight first thing. And then I also understood that, hey, it's time to go back to therapy. It's time to talk to a professional and have a therapist as part of my healthcare team. And I also shared on my social media, I actually have a saved highlight of the process that I took. I do have health insurance. So there was a step that I took to finding a therapist that I felt was going to be the best fit for me, that was in network with my insurance company, and just asking all the questions. And I shared that with everyone. Like, these are the questions that I asked, just so I know ahead of time, what is my copay? What is my deductible? How much is the insurance, going to pay? Like, just all of these types of questions, just so you're fully prepared and you can make the best choices for you if you are seeking a therapist or counseling services. And just to kind of mention, because I do tend to look at things more holistically, but one of the other reasons why I was looking at therapy, not only for my depression, but I've been working on my hormonal imbalances for almost 2 years now. And one of those imbalances is my cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And so basically, through some in-depth testing, we've been able to discover that my body is actually producing cortisol, but for some reason, it feels the need to protect itself. So it's turning it into cortisone, which is like a deactivated version of cortisol. So if you just looked at my cortisol levels, they look pretty low. And this is the reason why I'm struggling to, maintain or lose weight, low libido, I'm having sleep disturbances, I have poor mood. There's all of these symptoms that come along with that. But just looking at those results, that tells me for some reason my body feels like it is at war, and it's not. There's like my external stimuli is a calming, loving, flourishing environment. Why does my body feel like it's at war? And that's something that I just opened up with my therapist, that there's some trauma in my life that I feel like needs to be opened up and explored and kind of, discovered. And that way I can learn how to process and cope that much better, because my body needs that healing at this point. So that kind of also goes into, we can do the nutrition, we can do the workouts, we can do the supplementation and all of these things, but we also have to work on what is in our heart and in our mind, because that affects us externally just as much, and the workouts and all of those factors of our lifestyle as well. So yeah, I'm sorry if that was a little bit of a long-winded explanation. But I just think it's important to be vocal about that. And I know that a lot of women with PCOS suffer from some of these issues as well. So definitely, if your listeners want to head to my page, check out that highlight on the steps of, what can you do to find a therapist or counselor to better help you as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm grateful that you shared your story and that you're vocal on social media about your mental health, because I feel like we are getting more, people are being more vocal about their mental health, and
I think so too.
Yeah, and promoting, trying to support people and promote the fact that it's okay to be feeling how you're feeling, and okay, making people feel that it's okay to find someone, a therapist, to speak to, because sometimes, like you might say, just talk to your friend or talk to your family, but sometimes it's hard to just open up to certain people because they can help, but sometimes you just need that kind of professional advice,
like a non-biased person to listen. Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And there's just talking. I mentioned my healthcare team. Like, as a woman with PCOS, you kind of have to advocate for your body and start building that healthcare team, because as we know, PCOS is a disorder that it affects the entire body, hormonally, metabolically. So, if you haven't already, maybe start considering all the different professionals that you can include in your PCOS treatment, whether that's a gynecologist, an endocrinologist, a dermatologist, a psychologist, or mental health provider, or a nutritionist. Because you're so affected in so many different areas, it just never hurts to have a team of people that are in your corner supporting you and your body with PCOS.
Exactly. I feel like we do need to have that support system, because there will be days where you're going to feel down and you're going to struggle to get yourself out. And I feel like having that support system where you can just contact someone who understands, can help you, pull you out of that situation, that frame of mind, and give you those, also just give you the tools to be, maybe when you're in that situation when you're feeling low, they give you those tools so that you can pull yourself out, so you don't always have to feel like you have to rely on someone else, or you can just be in that place and be like, okay, I have to think this way, that it's gonna pass, I just have to do this and this, think this way, and like just have those tools in your, have those tools.
Use them. Yes, for sure. The tools in the toolbox. For sure.
But yeah, I remember you mentioned on your Instagram stories about the fact that, like, it's fine to take antidepressants to support you in this situation you're in, but you shouldn't be like relying solely on antidepressants to do that job. You should, it's like 50-50, like, or a weighing scale. You have to put in, and then that puts in. You can't just expect medication to do like the whole 100% job, because unfortunately, like, medication and things aren't just that amazing yet. They haven't reached that amazing.
I mean, they're, for sure. Like, at the end of the day, you are still 100% responsible for you. And I'm a firm believer in that. So even at my lowest point, I have to have that pep talk with myself. It's like, you're the only person that can pull yourself out of it. So, you have to put the hard work in with it as well. But, the beautiful thing is we can all do hard things. I know we like to avoid them. We have aversions toward them. No one likes to experience suffering or pain or, have to endure anything like that. But we're so much stronger than we think we are, and we can do hard things.
Yeah, definitely can. Mm-hmm. And when we overcome our struggles, it's just inspiring and empowering and motivational to the fact that you've overcome something so, at that point, seems so hard to overcome, and you've beaten it.
Yeah.
To the point where you just
for sure.
Beat anything now.
For sure, I totally agree.
But yeah, I'm glad you shared your story on mental health. Like, let's briefly, because you mentioned you struggled with an eating disorder since you were like a young age as well.
Yeah.
So, like, because I remember I had an eating disorder when I was like in my 20s, I think, and I remember that was like, it was a struggle. It was like the worst couple of years of my life, because you're not feeding yourself, you're just restricting, you're just mentally drained, and just, I feel like with eating disorders, it's all about that control, because there's a lot in your life that you can't control, but there's like the food that you can and the exercise you can control. So you end up fixating on the eating disorder, which is like obsession over that thing. You can control your food, you control what you put in your body, whether like you can't control, I don't know, your work or stuff like that. So what did you personally do to help yourself get out of mental state, that eating disorder? Can you just share a bit of the background?
So I will say, so I've been struggling with bulimia since I was 14, which means that that's over half of my life now, which makes me so sad when I think about it like that to know. And, you know, unfortunately, I learned about eating disorders through a health class at school. And instead, even though it was preaching on the, you know, negative effects of it, it taught me what to do. And I think about that, it just worries me so much for the young, you know, women, or even the, you know, the young boys in school, that's still a possibility. And of course, in the beginning, it's all about the weight loss, right? Like you think, oh, you know, if I can expel all of this food that I ate, then I'm not going to gain weight. And, you know, over time, it definitely became more apparent to me as an adult that it was a stress coping mechanism. So I can see throughout timeline in my life where my stressors are much greater, that the bulimia would be more current and would happen more frequently. So one of the things I will say, and this is the verbiage that I've used before, I typically say that I am bulimic because I look at it kind of like, you know, someone that struggles with addiction. Like it's always going to be something that is in my shadows. It's always going to be kind of lurking around, and I always have to work every single day of my life to not fall into that space again. So it's not like, you know, oh, I healed from this experience and it's said and done. That's not the case for me. It's going to be an ongoing journey for the rest of my years. But I will say that I recently listened to a podcast of Lady Gaga and Oprah. And Lady Gaga was talking about her experiences and her trauma. And she spoke about those types of things in a past tense because they didn't identify her anymore. And I thought, wow, like that is such a beautiful perspective to have in place. Don't know if I'm for sure there yet, but that really helps me kind of like be in that gray area of in between the lines of I love the idea of just being like, you know, once I can't identify with it anymore, it's not me, you know, and that is a closed chapter in my life. But what I will say is that, you know, because I don't ever feel like I've fully overcame it, it has popped up in the recent years in my life. Therapy is the one thing that has been helpful for me to really understand, notice the triggers, notice, you know, what to do in those moments, because this is the thing. Typically when that happens, I'm more of a out of control, out of body, out of manic phase. And you, even though you have the intelligence to say stop, you don't have the ability to do so, or that's my story. That is the case for me. And therapy is what was so helpful to really bring home the importance of stress management and self-care and how that has to be a daily action for me. It's what I call preventative care now. It's just like taking, you know, a vitamin C supplement for immune support during cold season. I have to do this every single day. I have to put myself as a priority. Every single day I have to focus on stress management, because that is what's going to add up to prevent those stress triggers from causing me to get to the point where I no longer have control over my actions. And I typically like to share, even with my clients, we think it's all about the food, and it's not. The food is just, it's a symptom. Like, it's about us. It's about our triggers. It's about our coping mechanisms. And the sad part is, you know, you are likely, especially for us that are in our 20s and 30s, you have dealt with this behavior and you have done this behavior for a large amount of years. So you can't expect for you to overcome that in 30 days, in 6 months, in 1 year. You're basically doing this process of rewiring your brain to have a different behavior. And one of the things I just know from being an autism mom, dealing with challenging behaviors, you typically want to block that behavior and refer it to something more serving, like a better behavior that is more healthy for you. So I kind of put that in with my eating disorder behaviors as well. So if I notice that I am super anxious, super stressed, that is more than likely leading to my eating disorder behaviors. I have got to stop it and immediately put myself first, whether that's meditation, yoga, a bath for an hour just to, decompress, whatever it is. I have to put myself first to prevent myself from having those kind of behaviors. So I'm a firm believer in self-care being a huge part of my process and making it preventative, doing that every single day. Again, putting that hard work into action and doing that daily because I am going to have to deal with this the rest of my life.
Exactly. I can definitely relate to that. And I feel like hard work is a thing we're like, oh, why do I have to put so much effort into this? But unfortunately, to have success in whatever part, it takes hard work. You have to put in the work.
It does. That's the unfortunate thing. I would love for everything to be, easy peasy lemon squeezy, but, it's just not the case. And, it's just, there's that quote out there that, just choose your heart. Living with trauma and eating disorders and the behaviors that come along with it, that's hard too. There's not like that's an easy life to have either. The aloneness that you feel, the shame that you feel, it's different for everybody. The self-loathing, the sneaking around and hiding, and not to mention the negative health effects and all of that. That's really hard too. So it just really comes down to picking your heart.
We shouldn't feel bad or feel like there's something wrong with us. We should be trying to find that support to help. If you have an eating disorder, you need to. Yeah. It's hard to admit it and be like, I need help, because you're just like, people don't really understand. Like I remember when I was struggling, and I still have those times where it kind of, when you get really stressed, it kind of hits you. I understand the trigger, so I try to manage it and prevent it from getting too out of control like it used to. But I remember when I was really going through it, and my parents would just be like, "Oh, just eat, just eat. It's fine. Nothing's gonna happen." It's just saying just eat to someone with an eating disorder. It is just does not.
It's not about the food. I wish it was that simple, right? It's just so much more is involved, and or just stop. I love that one, and I say that with sarcasm. Just stop, and I'm like, it's not if you have to experience it, which I don't want people to experience it. It's a horrible place to be, but it's really hard to understand. And I'm very fortunate to have a supportive spouse that, even though he doesn't understand anything mental, he's trying really hard to understand, and even, on my good and bad days, we kind of use this little, slang of, are you a happy sloth today, or are you a sad sloth? So he kind of just knows where I'm at and be supportive of that. But I think also, we struggled with that when we were younger. There wasn't as much, people weren't vocal about it. There wasn't awareness about it, and there wasn't support about it. So I'd just like to remind your listeners, there is so much support out there at your fingertips now. So utilize that. And, even if, of course, most women are really busy, and maybe you don't have time to, sit on a couch with a therapist an hour each week or something like that. There are so many nutritionists, dietitians, counselors that can help you with recovery online now from anywhere. So those are options. You're not alone, and there's help. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out, because we want you to.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So last kind of question, last kind of thing.
Yeah.
What would be your biggest piece of advice or tip I don't know, based upon your experience and just everything you've been through, your whole journey, what would be that one piece of advice you would just give someone who might be going through what you're going through or been through?
Yeah. Oh man, that's hard. There's so many things I could say. So I'll just go with what came to the forefront of my mind. So don't sit in that negative space and play the victim for too long. Granted, your feelings are valid. That emotion is valid. You have all the right in the world to grieve however you need to, but please don't sit in there long and become your own hero, because you are so capable of doing hard things, as we already discussed, and you are the magic pill. You have 100% control over your body and your life, and you really can start living a really full life. So, that may mean several different things. Maybe it's, diving into the information and learning more about your diagnosis, advocating, getting advocates for yourself and support. But, just please don't sit in that dark space for too long. Pull yourself out of it. You have the strength to do that, and become your own hero. Fight for yourself.
I think
you are worth it.
I think that's a good way to end, of just being like your own health advocate, and admitting that, just like sitting in your negativity, okay, but then pull yourself out by setting a goal or something. Because I feel like when we have a goal, we're more likely to to stay on course of to achieve that. Because when we have no like goal, or like we feel like we have no purpose in life, things just like, it just kind of spirals, and you can't get out of that hole. So I think just one day, just like get a piece of paper and a pen and just write down like your goals and what you want in your life. Like what kind of stuff could you give back to the world? Like what we're doing, our whole health journey has kind of led us to what we're kind of doing at the moment, and we're trying to spread that message of like, there's support, there's other people who are going through what you're going through, you've been through it, and just giving people that motivation and that inspiration that they can keep going. So I feel like it's good to just make notes of what your goals are and what you want to give back to the world, and that kind of just lifts you up. I think that really helps.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like it all, we're all connected, and it all comes back around. People don't realize, like, my passion for serving others fuels me. It comes back to me. And also, if you're sitting there thinking, I don't even have the capacity to sit down and write down a goal, like maybe you're in such a negative space that you can't even come up with that, then reach out to one of us. We will gas you up and we will help you out. Don't because I've had women do that, but like, I can't even think of something that I want for myself. Well, like, we'll have a chat. Come on, like we'll figure this out. You're not alone. We're gonna get through this for sure.
Yeah, that's true. I think just talking to someone who's been through it, and you can just like vibe about this kind of stuff, and you just end up thinking of things that you never, because in that negative mindset you're in, you can't really think of it. But when you start having that chat with someone who understands, they say certain things that kind of open or unlock that bit of your brain that's been closed for so long.
It kind of push the clouds away, and you have that moment of clarity. I totally agree.
Another thing I think is quite helpful for mental health is just reading certain books. Like I like reading certain books that just make you think differently. Like The Power of Now, that book kind of like, I feel like changed quite a bit for me when I read it.
Oh, really? I'll have to check that out. The Power of Now?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
I don't know if I could pronounce his name properly, but that Eckhart Tolle. I don't even want to butcher people's names. Like, he's just, if I pronounce it wrong, then it's just like, I apologize to the author. But yeah, that book was amazing. I think it's really good. So I feel like reading books and just like journaling as well. I feel like we say journaling and meditation, and it's just like, just do certain things that might just help you come out of just find ways that can help bring some positivity and shine some light.
Yeah, for sure. Like, even if you're not good at any of the things that we're talking about, just grab a piece of paper, grab your, pen, and just jot down whatever is on your mind. Whatever, it doesn't have to flow. It doesn't have to be a complete sentence.
Right.
Just do that. I mean, you could set a notebook on your bedside table, do that every night before you go to bed. And in 1 week, notice the drastic difference in your mindset and how it affects your life. So it can be so simple. It really can.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like we're just overcomplicating certain situations sometimes when you just have to take a step back.
For women, right? That's what we do.
Exactly. Yeah, always just take a step back. Sometimes just take a detox of social media and just really,
for sure,
be present in this moment and be grateful and look back at what you have. And sometimes even just looking back and being grateful for what you have just shine some light into your life anyway. So
I agree.
I thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey, providing great tips that can be implemented today now by our listeners. So yeah, thank you for that. To finish off, can you share how our listeners can connect with you? Where can they find you?
Oh, yes. So you can follow me on Instagram at Bates Loves Weights. I'm pretty active there. On Facebook, it's Live Free Health Coaching. You can also go to my website, which is livefreehealthcoaching.net. And if you have any questions or you want to reach out to me via email, it's Letisha@livefreehealthcoaching.com. But I'll definitely you'll probably link a lot of that to the notes. But yeah, like I'm on social media. Reach out to me. I love it when people reach out. Like, it doesn't, people are like, I know you're busy. No, I love it. Reach out to me. I want you to. Exactly. And thank you so much for having me here and allowing me to share my story. I love everything that you do, and we need this in our community. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And anytime you can come back on if you want. But yeah, I highly recommend that you all check your Instagram out. Just reach out, send a DM, just anything, just send her anything. Yes. just send her a message.
Just come at me.
Listen to the episode and just if it helped you out, just like let us know. We really appreciate it. It means people are actually like listening to what we're saying, and we're actually kind of making a difference in any way, shape or form. If we've just done anything, just it kind of motivates us as well, because sometimes we can feel low in our.
Oh yeah.
So it just kind of boosts
for sure.
That motivation to keep us going to provide this content. But yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.